Hi, this is Trish. I am with Hip Homeschool Moms, and I am here with one of our other owners, Wendy Hilton, and we're here with Nicholeen Peck. Nicholeen is sort of the parenting guru out there. She was on this fantastic series that I absolutely love, Nicholeen. It's one of my favorite shows. I cried, I laughed, I did everything. It's called, what's the World's Strictest Parents? Is that right?
That's right.
British? Oh
Yeah.
my gosh. It is, if y'all haven't seen it, you have to go to her website, which we'll tell you about here at the end. That is fantastic. It is funny. It will make you cry. It will make you laugh. It will break your heart. It will do a whole lot of things, but I loved it. So that's how she sort of got the title of parenting guru. But she's also written her own curriculum called Teaching Self-Government, and she's written a book, which is here, A House United, which is sort of the basis of everything for teaching self-government. But I think we need to start with one thing. We need to explain what self-government is, right? So
I think that's a really important thing. In fact, if I could, before I even do that, if I could explain one other thing, and that is the word strict, right? So I'm on this program called The World's Strictest Parent. When they asked me to do this program, I thought, I don't know if I'm going to be okay with this, being called the world's strictest parent, because, I was this parent for foster children for lots of years, and they were troubled youth, ages 12 to 18, and they had lots of issues. And when the BBC asked me to be on this program, they asked me because I was good with troubled kids. And so, anyway, then they said to me, well, would you consider yourself a strict parent? And I said, well, no, I don't yell at my kids or anything like that. And they said, well, do you let your kids go hang out at the pub? Do you let your kids do drugs? Do you let them smoke and get tattoos? And I was like, well, no. And they said, well, then you're strict. And I was like, wow, that's all it takes? Like, we have
Well, I'm right there with you then. I'm in trouble.
Well, and at that point I thought, like, yes, it's not so bad to be strict if that's what they figure. But I was talking to this friend of mine, and she said, Nicholeen, you are one of the strictest parents, but you don't understand strict. She said, a strict parent doesn't need to yell. And I thought, oh, what an interesting concept. And so I looked that word up, and the word strict in my favorite homeschool book, actually, besides Holy Scripture, my favorite homeschool book is the Webster's 1828 Dictionary, and I always have that sitting on my lap with whatever I'm reading to the kids or to myself, and I look up the words. Anyway, so I looked up strict in that book, and it said, a person who governs themselves by a set of principles. And I went, oh no, I am the world's strictest parent.
Yep.
I do believe in principles. So let me tell you about my principle of self-government.
Okay.
It's not mine. I do have to say that. It's for sure not mine. So self-government is an old idea, in fact, really, really old. It was something that was in the Bible. The Israelites, they set up their society out in the wilderness after they left Egypt, and they divided themselves, it says in the scriptures, into groups of 10s, groups of 50s, groups of 100s. You read that part in the Old Testament of the Bible. And this was a self-governing system that they set up. And then the Anglo-Saxons, many years later, came along. They founded Anglo-land, which we call England today, and they were deciding on what type of government that they wanted to have. So, of course, they consulted their Bibles, and they determined that the Israelites must have known something, and God had helped them set up their society, so they wanted to do something like that. So they set up what they call the self-government form of government, and they divided themselves into groups again. And there were family groups, and there were, the friend social groups and the ward groups, which were like for the parish groups. And anyway, it went out and out and out. Anyway, so that was how that happened. Then when the founders of our country got educated, they were educated, on the Anglo-Saxon history of England. And so then when they saw things going wrong, they recognized not only were they not being represented, but they were not getting the opportunity to have self-government. They were being micromanaged from the top down. It was a problem. They felt like that was going against what the government was set up to be. And so because they had studied the Anglo-Saxon founding as well. Anyway, so they set up our government in the United States, which they called, again, a self-governing form of government. And it was set up to be like this. This is, if you, I wish I had a diagram to show you, but
you got a whiteboard beside you. No. Other side.
Okay. Yeah, that's what I needed, like a little board. Anyway, so, but just imagine, or if you've got a piece of paper, write it down. So this is what it would look like. If you draw a circle in the middle of a paper, and in that circle you write the word self. Okay? So their idea was is if a person had a problem, didn't matter what the problem was. There you go. Look, there's the whiteboard. Okay, you can be the visual aids lady.
Yes. Anna. How fun. Okay.
So you've got a circle, and it says self in it. Now, their idea was if you had a problem, whether you didn't get along with your husband, or your child, had a problem, or you had a problem with a neighbor, or you lost your job, or, whatever it happens to be, whether it was financial problem or moral problem or whatever the problem was, the first person you would go to is self.
Right.
So one of the easiest way for me to illustrate how this was supposed to work is to talk about, let's say you lost a job. Okay? So let's say I lost my job. I would go to myself and I would say, what skills do I have? What do I know? Who can I network with? What needs to be improved about me in order to fix my situation? What could I liquidate, perhaps, to get money, or could I start a business or whatever, the American dream. Anyway, so if I can't help myself, then I go to my next line of defense. So now you take your circle that says self, and you draw another circle around the outside of that. So it looks like a donut. And in that circle, you write the word family. So then you would go to your family, and you would say...
Mine isn't a donut, whatever.
Yeah, no, that's good.
Okay.
That's good. It's good. The self one should be good and chunky. Hopefully it's the best one, right?
That's right.
Okay, so you go to family and you say to your family, all right, I've lost my job. Can you give me a loan? Can you introduce me to someone? Can you tell me what's wrong with me? Can you tell me what education
yeah.
This is like, they would be completely humble.
Did we just lose her?
I think so.
Oh, man. At completely humble. Isn't that fun?
Yeah. Speaking of, huh?
Nicholeen, my goodness. Okay, well, we'll just keep right on talking, and I'll send her a note. We lost you. I'm telling you what. Click the link to return if she's still out there. Oh my goodness.
That happens.
Leave it to us. Okay, so I'm going to talk about it. Wendy and I. Yeah.
Wait, I think she's back.
Okay,
are you there? You were frozen.
I do not know what happened just there. You guys froze on me, and I typed. There it is. It just popped up finally.
Yeah.
Anyway, so really strange. But I was in the middle of a diagram. Do you want me to finish it?
Now you're gonna have to start back over. Family. Literally, we didn't hear anything on family. Start again. Sorry.
Yeah. Didn't hear anything on family.
No. Well, we did. You said.
Well, we heard go to family second. Then you should go to your family.
And you said really
humble.
humble.
Do I need to change? Yeah.
And you said really humble, and then that's where we lost you.
Okay, great. Well, so we'll start there. So that second line of defense is the family. You go there and you ask them for any help, any loans, and any advice or any networking that they could provide for you. And if they can't give you the help that you need, then you have to go to your next line of defense. So if you draw another circle around the outside of the family circle, and then that circle inside that one you would label as friends. Okay? So that's your friends line of defense. Now, before
I need to get my colored pencils out. You know that, right?
Really pretty. Really pretty.
We need colored pencils.
So before I talk about the friends, I just want to say really quickly about the family. So that family is right next to the self.
Yep.
And that's significant, that line between self and family, because a person's front part of the brain, the part that does your problem solving and your logic and stuff, is not actually fully developed until you're between the ages of 18 and 24 years
I
old.
agree with that. I 100% agree with that.
And so, how can that self fully solve all of their problems if they have not been trained? They have to be trained by somebody, and it is the parent's job historically. I mean, God set up that, right? That's self-evident.
Yep.
Right? So, anyway, they have to train the self to do the problem solving. That is the role of parents. And we'll talk about how that's missing possibly later. But anyway, okay, back out to the friends, okay? So the friends, you would ask them the same questions. Can you help me? Can I get a loan from you? Can you direct me to anybody? Network me in some way. If the friends cannot help you, then you go to the next line of defense. So you draw another circle around the outside of that, and you write in that church. So that's where people would go to their ecclesiastical leaders, their pastors and their priests and their, bishops and ministers, and they would go and ask them, can the church help me? Can they offer me charity? Oh, that is nice.
And now see, purple. Notice I'm purple.
Pretty.
Okay, so we have church.
We'll put that on the fridge, Trish.
There you go.
Okay.
You can see my beautiful artistic expression here, right? Mm-hmm. You can't get too many more circles. I'm going to run out of paper. I just want you to know.
One more to go. So as long as you got the church one there.
I got it.
Church is important. You would ask them the same questions. Can you give me charity? Can you help me find employment? Can you network me with other people that we go to church with? How can you help me? And if they couldn't help, which, by the way, most people never had to pass this point. I mean,
right.
the churches took care of their people.
That's right.
They did. So, but if they could not get help from the church for some reason, networking support in any way, then they would go to their last line of defense. And so if you draw another circle around, and I bet you can guess what that last line of defense would be. It's the government.
Oh, let's not go there.
Anyway, we don't need to spend a lot of time talking about what happens at the government level. But the good way to see how we're doing on self-government nowadays is just to ask yourself a little simple question. When somebody, just your run-of-the-mill citizen nowadays, loses their job, who's the first person that they go to?
Their self.
The government.
Mm-hmm.
They go to the government.
Yeah, now today they go to the government. Yep.
Yeah, they go to their government. Well, hopefully they go to their self. That's the best way. And a person of good character probably would, but I would say that a huge percentage of our population will go straight to the government for handout and help, right? Instead of problem solving. And that's actually how you know that our society is no longer a very good self-governing society. But we can change that by having self-government in our homes. And the reason why those other lines of defense aren't used, I'll just be really quick. As far as church goes, so many people are not being religious nowadays. Yeah, we're having a problem with that. So they are eliminating a line of defense that they have. Also, there are a lot of people who have pride. Even within their faith, they don't want to tell when they've got a problem,
Right.
And then the next line of defense, the friends, the next one down, we are an image-based society. People do not like to share their problems with their friends. They don't want to feel vulnerable. They don't want their image to be damaged in any way. So oftentimes they don't go to people and say, can I borrow money from you? Because then they have to actually pay it back. Now borrow it from the government and nobody cares if they pay it back. Anyway. And then family, I got to say, as much as I would love to think that families were still there for each other, I have seen over the world now, as I've traveled from place to place, that the families are embracing dysfunction at an alarming rate.
Oh my gosh.
The word function, and in fact, you read stuff and they'll say dysfunction, that's what everybody is. Everybody's dysfunctional. And they want you to embrace it and that's the new way. And it's not. If you try to look up dysfunction in Webster's 1828 dictionary, you will find it's not there.
Really?
The word did not exist in 1828.
That's crazy.
No, I find that cool. So I looked up the word function. The word function means living according to your purpose or your role. Oh, that
Okay.
was nice.
See, now red, notice government is red.
I like it.
There, yeah, okay. See,
That
it's
is
going
a
on my refrigerator. I had to make it pretty, right?
beautiful. It's beautiful. Seriously, you can hang it on your fridge, right?
I'm
It's a homeschool lesson for tomorrow,
There you
right?
go.
Anyway, so that's, yeah, so people are embracing dysfunction as function because the parents are not functioning in their proper capacity, the children are not functioning in their proper capacity. They're trying to usurp each other in constant power struggle, and then we have a society where the family relationships have been so destroyed, the people have become so selfish within the dysfunction that they're not there for support, and the parents often aren't doing the training either. And this is where we leave the self abandoned. The self is left alone with the government.
Oh, gosh.
That's a scary situation.
That is a scary situation, but that is exactly what's going on. I've never thought about it that way, but how perfect is that the way you put it? That is exactly what's going on.
That particular, explanation is the only time I actually talk about the government.
Right.
I teach self-governing principles, but what they mean is being in control of yourself. So the definition of self-government means being able to determine the cause and effect of any given situation, and then possessing a knowledge of your own behaviors so that you can control them. So you're constantly analyzing yourself and analyzing what's going on and deliberately learning things to prepare you to make better choices in the future. So that's really what self-government is. It's this process of problem solving that leads to freedom. And the founders of our country knew that, and it really is based in the home. If the parents don't teach it, the people don't learn it, and then everybody is left alone with the government, basically.
Wasn't it Ben Franklin that had that list? Wasn't it Ben Franklin that did that?
Absolutely. Oh, Ben Franklin. I love Ben Franklin. He absolutely is inspiring. And I don't know if you noticed the pattern, too, if you've read his writings, but he made a list of 13 things he wanted to fix about himself. And then after he worked on those for multiple years, one by one, fixing each of the flaws he saw within himself. After that, he became this huge sage of wisdom. And you know why? Because when you conquer yourself, you are more free than any other person around you. And all of a sudden, you just have a unique wisdom. Because you're no longer subject to just the desires of the flesh.
Exactly. Well, I was about to say it's burning the flesh. Exactly. You just hit the nail on the head. Exactly. That's scriptural.
Yeah.
Even though Ben Franklin said it, that's scriptural. Yep.
Yep.
Good stuff.
All right. Well, that kind of leads us to a question about creating a family vision. I know one of the first things you do in your program is create a family vision. And if you would, can you tell us just a little bit about what that is and how that can help us to govern ourselves on a day-to-day basis?
Sure. So, there's a difference always between principle and practice, right? Things you do and
things you really, really wanted to do that you can't manage to do, right? Yeah.
Right. I mean, every homeschool mom knows that usually only 1 in 10 turns out perfect. The other well, that's just how it is, right? At least that's how it is for me. About 1 in 10 where I go, we checked everything off the list. The children were totally inspired at every minute. I mean, that just doesn't happen every day. Anyway, we try. But so let's talk about the principle and practice of self-government. So I've shared with you the principle, which is, okay, this is what self-government is. We want this. It's freedom for people. If you don't have this freedom, you've got emotional bondage, okay? That's a principle. So you have to share that principle with the family. And the way that you share that principle with the family is by creating this picture of a possibility of what your family could be. So you say, well, what kind of family do we want to be 20 years from now? Let's think of what's our favorite holiday? What do we do on that day? Or what do we want to do? Or some families will even say, we want to go on a cruise 10 years from now, and that's going to be our family vision. And I think, well, that's great, Our family has Christmas, and every year on Christmas we practice for what kind of a family we want to be on that Christmas when we made this years and years ago, 20 years from then. And we make this picture of who might be there, what the feelings are, what the smells are, the sounds, the things that we'll be doing, and especially focusing on that feeling that is there as a family.
And I love that exercise. That was probably one of, I have mine. I did it in my journal.
Yeah, pretty.
And I did it. That is one of the best exercises. Now, it's hard. It was really hard to do that. Wendy, did you do it yet?
I did
Have
not.
you done it?
I did not do it yet.
It's hard. It's hard. I mean,
I have thought about it, but it is hard, so I just haven't made myself write it down.
We're going to get you that book, Jim Hard
You know what, Wendy, that's probably the question, because you need that one. You've got to do it. Here's the thing, is there are a lot of people who see a lot of negative behaviors happening around them. And they look at Nicholeen Peck and they say, okay, Nicholeen Peck teaches stuff, right? I've got these books, like this one, teaches kids how to follow instructions. I've got books that teach like how to accept no answers and disagree appropriately and set consequences and how to be calm and all of that kind of stuff. And they're like, that is where I'm at. Crisis, we've got to go there, right? And so they go to that first, which is totally okay, but some of them never make it back to that first part of the book, which talks about creating that family vision.
Right.
That is so important to do that, because that gives your family a deeper footing when you're going through problem solving and learning these new skills. It's not just about this bugs Mom, so we have to learn a skill.
Right? Which is usually what it is in my house. Thank you very much.
I was going to say, that's pretty good.
Instead, it's like, wait, what kind of a people do we want to be? What kind of a family do we want to be? How about we determine that God didn't put us together by some accident? How about we say we're supposed to be a certain family for a certain reason, and don't you think we ought to be the best at it that we can? You know, and what does that look like? Right?
I love that. It is mine. How long do they normally end up being? Do they vary? Mine is like 3 pages long, 4 pages long. 1, 2, 3, 4 pages long.
That's beautiful. So now what you do, Trish, is you've written it out, which is wonderful. So now what you do is you go and you share that with your husband.
Okay.
And then you let him add his parts that he might want to add.
Oh, okay. I'm making a note. I'm writing that down.
Okay. So then you make a joint family vision, and then you present it to the children, and say, you know, I really got to apologize, guys. Sometimes we get hung up in the minute, and in these little things. And really, what we're doing as a family is so much more important than in the minute, that little thing. So how about we make a plan for what kind of a family we want to be? Me and Dad have already done it, and we've decided what we want. But we would love for you guys to make any additions or details, or if you want to discuss any of it with us, this is what we've got. And then you share the story with them.
And I love, especially since my kids are older, and Wendy's are too, really, I love that you get their input, because that gives them buy-in. Yeah. That's actually one of my questions is, how do you get family to buy in? Well, I just found out how you get family to buy in. Because they're a part of it. That's how.
Make it theirs.
Yeah, I mean, that's the only way you're going to get them to buy in, is if they feel a part of it.
They have to see something as a possibility. In fact, the only way to learn self-government is to be in a constant state of analysis. You're analyzing where you're going and what just happened. Where you're going and what just happened. Where you're going and what just happened. Now you notice you're not analyzing what my excuses are.
I've got good.
Because that holds you back, right?
Right.
You don't get closer to freedom and self-government if you're dwelling on your excuses. You just say, this is what happened, this is where I'm going, so this is how I have to change it to improve. Okay, now this is what happened, but remember, this is where I'm going. And this is what parents do. So I teach parents 5 different ways to teach and correct their children. So I teach them how to praise, pre-teach, correct, how to handle really intensive teaching moments, so when a child is just really having a hard time being calm and being in control, and then how to do what's called parent counseling. And guess what? A part of every single one of those 5 teaching styles that parents do is describing. And the reason why you describe is because you hold up a mirror for the child and say, this is what happened. Then you hold up another mirror and say, this is what should have happened, because this is where we're going. And then you say, okay, now let's fix it. Let's practice it the right way. Let's earn a negative consequence so that we remember for the future. And nothing's emotional. The child knows every single thing you're going to say every time. It's totally predictable because the family has deliberately determined this is where we're going. And then they deliberately determine these are the skills and the tone in our family that we're going to use to get there. This is how we're going to check up on ourselves. That's where all the meetings come in that are in the book.
Wow.
And then and then this is how we're going to correct the problem, and here we go. And it really is not as complicated as that book, all those pages look. It's not.
Yeah, it is a thick and meaty book, but it's not a hard read at all. I mean, it's actually an interesting read.
Yeah, in fact, it is written from a mother to its parents. That's I did it that way on purpose. I did not make it an academic text. I feel like there are enough of those out there for parents nowadays, and I feel like it needed to be something that was just for parents from a parent who really knows, who's parented the hard kids, who's had all those behaviors.
And lots of stories, lots of real life experiences, which I totally enjoyed. One of my favorite actually is the deep water parenting. Oh my gosh, that really struck a chord. Why don't you talk about that? Because that's really something that to me that I was just joking with Wendy about let's do hard things. That's one of the things you talk about, is that it's doing those hard things. It's ironic that somebody else wrote that book, huh? You should have written that book.
Oh, I love that book. And I love my children, those Harris brothers, they're so good. Yep. Anyway, one day I'll have to show them the presentation that I do for like homeschool crowds and stuff with their video.
By the way.
We actually have those. Guys. They just don't know me, that's all.
There you go.
They're fantastic. No, I do this class called The Myth of the Teenager, and I use them as a great example. Anyway, it's fun. Okay, so yeah, do hard things in the deep water swimming story. I gotta tell you, that was probably, how you have some of those moments in your life that they just give you new vision and new focus in such a profound way. Everything changes for you because of those stories. And this was one of those stories for me. I had no idea it would be so profound, and it was just one word, one little phrase from my dad, one quick thing he said that just changed everything for me. But I'm not going to spoil the story.
Yeah, I know. You can't do that.
Yeah, it's a super fun story, but people will stop me all the time, and they'll say, Nicholeen, I needed that deep water swimming story.
Yeah.
And the idea of being in deep water, have you ever heard, like, parents in the old days, they'd say, oh, you're in deep water, buddy.
Old days, excuse me. I think I have said that recently. What are you talking about?
So this idea of deep water is a biblical idea, actually.
Oh, good.
Back to like Jonah or something,
That's
right? You are in trouble.
That's right. With a capital T, oh, by the way.
Exactly. So, but so this deep water idea, this idea that you are treading, you are swimming, you are stuck, and it's like you feel like, am I going to make it?
And you know what? That's exactly it. That thought, that deep water, because you're either swimming, treading, which is so tiring, or drowning. I mean, it's perfect place to put you in deep water, because that's really what parenting is. It's like, you're going to do one of those three things.
That's exactly, and there is, I wish I could find it for you really fast here in the book, but my illustrator in the book actually made a picture of the deep water, and I just love this picture. Oh, here she is. This is supposed to be me in the deep water. I don't know if you can see it.
Yep.
You see that?
Yep.
Anyway, just like, you see her face, she's like, oh,
exactly.
and this is this feeling of I'm drowning, and you hear parents say, I'm drowning. I feel like I'm just drowning. And so there is this actual feeling of deep water. Well, I had an experience in my life where I really was in the deep water, and what happened to me, and it was life-changing to recognize that deep water, being in that hard time of parenting and going through these difficult things, or whatever difficult things might be in your path for your life, is exactly what I was meant to do. I was
Mm-hmm.
born to do it. In
Mm-hmm.
fact, I wanted it. I wanted it. It's my happy place. I love that movie, Mom's Night Out. Right? It's so
Yep.
funny. And that lady, she's like, I wanted this. This was my and it's true. But that was significant to me because when you are in that place, you really do feel like, am I going anywhere? Am I getting anything? And it's a hard thing. And when I meet with parents all over the world, I get that story. That is where I am. You're Deepwater, Nicholeen. That is where I am every day, and I don't know if I can make it. Are you sure this stuff can help me?
And I really think that is really where so many moms are, that leads them to you, to this curriculum and to this program, is really, that's where they are. They're in the deep water, and they're either drowning, treading water, and they're plumb wore out with it, or they're young enough, like Tanya, the person that did our review, and y'all will be able to see that. That goes up, I guess, tomorrow, right, Wendy?
Mm-hmm.
Our review goes
Yes.
up tomorrow, so y'all will be able to read Tanya's story, who did it. She had very young has very young children, and so you either have that vision where you see it and you're like, oh my gosh, this is exactly what I want, or it's the exact opposite. You're in the deep water and you're treading water and you're like, what's happening here? So I love that. It's a perfect analogy for your book. I love that happened, actually, truly, literally happened to you, and that you chose to use that.
Well, it was all I have to say is, having that awful experience was a gift from God, and I'll just
How many times have we said that in hindsight, right?
Yeah.
It really was something that put everything into perspective. And you're right. In fact, I want to just touch really briefly on, so many times people will come to me and they really are in that pit of despair, and they're like, is there any hope for my family? My kids are 17, they're 16, I've got a 20-year-old, nobody's self-governing, they're out of control, they've got addictions, and they bring these things up and they say, can any of this help? And I will say, can truth help people? Can principles help people? Then yes, this can help. And I have seen it. It help just a husband and a wife who their children are long gone, and they have a history of not communicating well with each other, change. I have seen youth that are in their late teens and 20s change. I've lived with them. They've had some of the hardest things in the world, and they've been able to do it. But a wise parent, Trish, a wise parent does not wait.
Yeah.
A truly self-governing parent is proactive, not reactive. So many parents think, well, my kids are good, they're good, they're sweet, and why would I worry about teaching them to accept no answers and disagreeing appropriately until they've got a problem with it?
Right.
And that is actually the way that makes a child feel less safe. It also puts the parent in this reactive state of parenting where they feel like they've got to make something up instead of giving the child something they can rely upon to use always. So that's the other thing with self-government. When I was doing foster care for troubled youth, and my home was a treatment facility, I thought, well, I can teach them to behavior modify themselves, or I can help them have a change of heart forever.
And that's the only change that's lasting. That is totally the only change that is lasting, is when they want it and it's their heart change. Yeah.
And sometimes when they're really obstinate and they have habits of being, really naughty and having attitude problems and stuff like that, they might say, I don't want this. No, thank you. You can keep it, right? and they might say that. But I know that whenever a person is pushing back like that on their parent, they are begging for it, actually.
Whether they realize it or not.
That's right.
I mean, think of this. Think of a child that says, Mommy, I want a cookie. Mommy, can I have a candy? Can I have a cookie? I want more cookies. And what does the mom think? She thinks, you are telling me you do not need any more cookies. You need carrots and apples. Right? The mom knows that when it comes to nutrition, but because the other behaviors become so emotional, the mother doesn't put it in the same category.
Yeah.
And so she.
So what do you do?
That,
So what would you do, Nicholeen? let's say if you have, I know Tanya, who's the one doing the review, has very young children. What would you do if you have middle schoolers or high schoolers? How do you pitch this to them? How do you start?
How do you pitch it? Oh, I love that. Well, this is a super great question, actually, because they have to have a pretty solid buy-in. So what you do is, especially if you've got ages like 12 and older, sometimes even 11 and older, is you and Dad, you plan out, okay, this is what we're going to do. We're going to learn this. A lot of couples will come to my couples retreats, or for sure the online implementation course is really nice because there's so.
And we have that as a giveaway.
Yeah, that's right. So anyway, so you can do some study there, right, and really learn as much as you can about it. You won't be perfect yet, and that's okay. You don't have to be perfect, so long as you're a step ahead and you've got a vision.
I love that. Stay one step ahead.
Do you know the greatest mentors are always just one step ahead?
I agree. Yeah. I agree. And sometimes that's all you can ask for is just stay one step ahead.
And then you understand where the other person is.
Yeah, when you go to church and you sit down to listen to the talk that's being given at church, you know that person's not perfect. They're just one step ahead, right? You know, maybe it's a couple.
Depending on where you are on that path,
Depending on where you are on the path, that person is probably one step ahead, and that's it.
I love that.
And sometimes the one step is just that they had a realization about themselves.
That's right.
That you didn't have to have, and it was profound enough just to hear about theirs that it changed your heart, you know. Anyway, okay, so we won't go there, but yeah, you don't have to be perfect, and I always tell parents that, because there's some of these parents who like to check off a list, who go, I just don't remember it all yet, and I think, well, how many times have you used it? And then they say, I haven't used it yet because I don't know it yet. So, okay, so when you got the baby, did you diaper a whole bunch of other things before you just went for it?
I can so see this. Gourds, pumpkins, you know, what? How many things did you diaper?
That's practice. Yeah, no, you didn't do that. So anyway, this is how you present it, though. Let's get back to our question. I'm sorry. We could have fun, couldn't we, for a long time? Okay, so if I had a child who was, 11 or 12 or older, and actually all my children are older than that, but they hadn't known this from birth, which is the ideal way to do it if you can, then what I would do is I would have a one-on-one with each one of them. So me and my husband would have a special date with each one of them, starting with the oldest one. And we would, take them out somewhere or on a drive or a hike or whatever the family likes to do, and just mom and dad and that child. And then I would say to them, I'd be praying about how to do it right, making sure I had calmness and that spirit of love with me when I was talking to them. And then I would say, so I don't know if you've noticed, but sometimes, in our family, I do this, and I've lost control. And, sometimes I get kind of emotional, and I get stressed. Have you noticed the stress? Then you'd say, you know what, I realize I'm using that as an excuse sometimes for how I treat you guys, and it's not right. And I'm sorry. And I'm trying to learn to stop that, and that process is called self-governing. And I just wanted to tell you that I don't want our relationship to be like that, and I apologize. And then I would say to them, what do you want our relationship to be like? In the future, in 5 or 10 years from now, or when you've got kids of your own, what do you want it to be like when we're together and when we talk and in our future? And then you let them share. Now, some really selfish children might be like, what do I want from you? I want a cell phone, and I want, to play the computer whenever I want, and I want, some might say that, and you just say, okay, and you write it down. And then afterward you say, so it sounds to me like you want freedom. And you want to be, respected and kind of left alone. Is that right? And you just tell them, this is what I understand. Is that right? But most kids, and probably your kids, Trish, and your kids, Wendy, they probably wouldn't say that. They'd say, well, in the future, this is what I want, right?
Don't bet on it. Minecraft might come up.
So anyway, then you say, okay, so this is what I'm understanding that you want. Is there anything else? And they might share something else with you, or they might not. And then you say, okay, let me tell you what I want. And this is where you and your husband explain, or what we want, because you'd be there together.
Yeah.
We want to have the kind of relationship with you where we can talk about anything, where we get excited to see each other, where we, where we get together for regular, dinners as a family, and we look forward to that time where we would never say anything damaging to each other, where we're calm with each other. This is what I want, or what we want, and you would explain whatever you want in your way that you explain it. It's hard for me to phrase it not knowing who you are and what you would say. But you talk about that feeling of love, and then you say to your child, so what can we do? What changes can we make? Because right now what we're doing isn't working. What changes can we make so that we both get what we want?
Wow.
And
So you don't show them the vision plan. You just talk about it.
Not yet. And then you say, what could we do? Do you have any ideas? Me and Dad have been thinking about it. What do you think we could do? And it has to be something we can measure. That's an important thing. It has to be something we can measure, so that we see how we're doing with it, if that makes sense. So anyway, then you...
I think I want her to move in with me. I don't know about you, Wendy.
Oh,
I'm thinking, this would work a whole lot easier if Nicholeen just lived with us.
I'll just put on the side and say, what do you? I'll mediate. Anyway.
But she can't live with you and me and all the rest of us.
I know, not at the same time. Anyway, we can just
spread
you around.
That's actually why I have the information course.
Exactly.
Because that is the only way that I can mentor you. There's 26 classes. There's support group calls. It's the best way. Yep. Anyways, so, and you guys are lucky, so you can ask any questions as you go along with your courses that you've got. So then after that, then you would say, well, because usually they'll be like, well, I don't know, because they've only thought of it from their side, what they, right? And so you're giving them this, what could Mom and Dad want? Wow, I guess I never really considered that as much. And then to come up with something that you can measure is really hard. And then you say, okay, well, me and Dad have a picture of a kind of family that we want to have. And this is what we want. And we've decided to create a goal for ourselves, and there's an actual time. There's a day when we achieve this. And this is when it is. And we'd like to tell it to you and have you give any input that you might feel like we need for our family. And if me and Dad feel like it's not appropriate, we'll tell you no, but we want you to have an opportunity to make this even better if you feel like there's something that we're missing. And so then you present it, you have them share it, and then they share their ideas, and then you say, so we need to, our vision's going to help us measure how we're doing, because if it doesn't feel like that particular picture, that vision, then we know we're not going in the right direction. And so we got to try to work on practicing that feeling every day as a group. But there also needs to be other things that we can do, like skills that we can have that just make it easier. So then you would teach them those 4 basic skills. You would teach them how to follow instructions, which there's 5 steps to that. You would teach them how to accept no answers, how to accept consequences, and how to disagree appropriately. And you would talk to them about calmness and the importance of calmness. Because actually, calmness is the central piece of it all. People should not be threatening, bribing, and trying to correct and stuff, and have somebody be receptive when everybody is not calm. That's a huge thing. They've got to understand that the whole thing hinges on calmness. Because whenever you're not calm, you're in a state of dishonesty. That's important to know. Whenever you are calm, you are in a humble state of honesty. Even if you're very deliberate and you can assertively, because you can be calm and assertive and talk about what needs to be talked about. You don't have to be passive to be calm. And they need to understand all those things. There's a class called The Power of Calm where I talk about calmness and how to be calm. I go through the 6 steps of how to be calm when somebody else isn't, and how to help them be calm without losing control yourself. And that's on the course, actually, the implementation course. Super valuable because I also talk about the 4 different types of communication. Sharing that class with a teenage child is, eye-opening for them.
Something I want to jump in. Can I jump in for 1 second here? Because I think this is important to discuss that we haven't talked about yet. One thing that Nicholeen created, originally when she started this course, she created it where you sort of started it here and you flowed through on a natural step. You know, here's the next one, here's the next one, here's the next one. Well, she's changed it now to make it where if you think of a tree and you have the branches up here, the trunk here, and the roots down here, you can literally start anywhere that you need to start. So as she's sitting there talking about the power of calm, I'm going, oh my gosh, you know, I think people will pay me to go watch that in my family. They will literally hold me down and make me watch the power of calm. And I'm going, I know that's not the beginning, but that would be something that I think that would be very valuable to my family. And so I think it's important that everybody knows you don't have to work through 17 different steps to get to the power of calm. You can jump in at the power of calm if that is a trouble spot in your family. So I just wanted to jump in there. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
No, it's perfect, and it's in the roots. If you want to take the course from an inside out, like go from the inside out, then you go roots, trunk, branches.
Right.
But you can also skip all over it if you want to. But the power of calm is in the roots because.
Oh, good. So see, I wouldn't even have to jump too far.
So there you go.
Well, one of the things.
Understand.
One of the things that I liked that a lot of us had just probably never thought much about is a lot of this starts with the parents. If I'm not calm, if I'm screaming, you've got to be calm, and I'm not calm, then, and that's one of the things I really like is this program teaches the parents how to do the things we want our kids to do.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh,
that just
Wendy,
makes sense.
you hit on something. Yes, but you have hit on, that's the hardest thing.
Mm-hmm.
That is the hardest thing because habits, oh, they are amazing. They are like snowflakes, you know. So snowflakes, these little teeny things, they fall. And it seems like, you know, every time you do that one habit, it's no big deal. It was just one time. You just did that thing. But over an extended period of time, you have a full avalanche. And that baby is powerful.
That's right.
I mean, it can kill, right?
Yes.
Mm-hmm. And so, and that is what happens. So the older you are, the more times you've done something that is not really the way, so that practice doesn't match to your principles, right? The harder it is to cure. And parents do have the hardest time. In fact, I will be giving a presentation, self-government presentation, and there will always be some, you know, mom who's just putting it all together in her mind. She raises her hand and she'll say, okay, so I just realized if I'm going to do this, I have to self-govern.
Exactly.
That's right.
You're right.
Oh, no.
But here's the thing. Again, like I said before, you don't have to be perfect. Being in, you know, I believe in something called redos. I love redos, right? So when you know your principles, you know your skill that you are supposed to use to conquer that old habit. That's what skills do, by the way. So habits have to be replaced with something. Otherwise, they keep rearing their ugly head. And what you replace a habit with is a skill. Mm-hmm. A skill. So that's why I have skill sets for parents and skill sets for adults. So say I know I need to use this skill called, you know, correcting a behavior calmly, okay? I need this skill. And all of a sudden my child does something and I go, rah, 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 rah. And then I realize, oh, I just caught myself not using the skill. Well, what would a self-governed parent do? Would a self-governed parent give up? No. Would a self-governed parent continue on and go, well, next time? No, they wouldn't. A self-governed parent would, they would stop.
Or they'd apologize.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
That's right. And then they would look at their children and they would say, I am sorry. I did not use my skills. I am going to redo that because I am practicing self-government too.
You know what's going to happen. I can see it. I can so see it. I'm going to be the one that's being corrected. They're going to be sitting there going, Mom, where is your skill?
Well, and the skill that your children need to remind you of that is the disagree appropriately skill.
That's right.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Disagree appropriately, and you'll say yes, and then they'll say, Mom, I know that right now you've got a lot going on, but you just corrected me in a way that might not be using your skill. I suggest we redo it. But look at the freedom, just this concept of a redo. Look at the freedom it gives the family, because all of a sudden that was just a behavior. It wasn't a person. It wasn't a feeling. It wasn't anything like that. It was nothing deep. It was like, wait, I just did that, but now I'm just going to discuss it, and then I'm going to not do that.
And it's habitual. Yeah, exactly. It's a habit that has to be broken.
It's deliberate, and it's completely predictable. Because you go, well, this is where I'm going all the time. I'm predicting if there's a problem, I'm going to correct it this way, and I'm just going to deliberately stop myself. And the other thing, too, is once your family starts being deliberate, they'll talk about all kinds of things. Nothing, then, is too sensitive to discuss.
I love it.
No matter what it is, anything can be talked about. And then your family is not held back by deception within the family group, which leads to dysfunction.
Yeah.
So the family has to be deliberately. I love to stop my children and say, because we have our family vision, and then we have a mission statement as well that describes how we're going to do our family vision. And it starts out, we, the Peck family, will love, support, and be united with one another. It goes on, we are dedicated to building an atmosphere of trust, faith, and learning in our home. Anyway, it goes on for a while, but what
so that's a model out there somewhere that we get to copy, right? You have that written out.
In the course. And so, and you can, tweak it or make your own.
Or claim it. Just claim it. No, I'm just kidding.
Like the Hilton family. Don't stick with Peck. Yeah,
we'll change that. The pecking order. The pecking order. Okay.
Yeah, just go with make a couple of my. Anyway, but what I'll do is I'll catch the children maybe bickering, or someone will say, in fact, this just happened today. My daughter said to my son, "Hey, Porter, can you, pass that or get me that out of the sink or whatever?" And he just looked at her and he goes, "No."
Mine would say, "Do it yourself."
And then they are like best friends, right? And he goes, "No." And I said, "Porter, do you remember that just a few minutes ago we said this thing," because we say it every day, that starts out, "We, the Peck family, will love, support, and be united with one another. We're dedicated to building an atmosphere of trust, faith, and learning in our home." And then I said to him, "So, Porter, if you won't help someone when they ask you for help, is that supporting them and building an atmosphere of trusting and loving? Are you teaching them that you want to be treated that way in the future too?" And he was like, "That's right. Oh, sorry." And he just looked at his sister and he's like, "Okay," and he just gets it and he takes. But they've been raised with this, but they still have to be reminded. They're not perfect. It's not done yet. The brain is not done yet.
That's right. Proof positive. They were born and raised with it. There you go.
Right. Anyway, so yeah, you bring those things up deliberately, and just like you would anything, and you just say, "Remember, we say this. What you just said, was that?" And then, "Oh, no, it wasn't." "Okay, then just redo it the right way." Okay. And then it's all just, it doesn't have to be emotional. A lot of people think nowadays that if you feel something, like if you have an emotion, that means whatever it is true. That is one of the biggest fallacies in our day right now. In fact, Disney does not help by making Inside Out. I'm just I think that movie's hysterical in a lot of ways, especially over the dinner table. That's super funny. But I will say that to teach a whole group of young people that the center of their brain is their emotions, and that they have to give in to them, that there is no other choice, that the emotions are in complete control.
Scary place.
Yeah, and you see a child run away from home and everything, and you think, well, she can't help it. They haven't put it together in there yet. Yeah. And I think, oh dear, this is not a good message, because that's a message where I'm now a victim of my own emotions, my own brain, and that is bondage for life.
Mm-hmm.
Emotional bondage is what I am out to stop. The antithesis of emotional bondage is self-government freedom.
Mm-hmm.
When you choose for yourself, you're free.
I
And don't
want
be caught.
I want to tell people about your website because I want them to be able to go out there and find out a little bit more about this. It's www.teachingselfgovernment.com, and I have this very southern twang, so I'll slow down. Teachingselfgovernment.com. But while you're out there, go and look at the video because the world's strictest parents is out there. Because Nicholeen is sitting here telling us about all these things that it sounds like she has 4 children, she's homeschooled, she's done all the things that we're doing, but it sounds like that she's coming from this place of heavy duty experience, and y'all need to know she is coming from a place of heavy duty experience. She was very, very involved with the foster care system there in her state. She has fostered many, many, many children, but really what really impacted me, like I said, I cried, was watching the movie, watching the whole show on the world's strictest parents. It is so touching, and you will see how it literally can change people that aren't part of her family. Well, now they sort of are, but they weren't then when they came to you. They weren't part of your family.
Yeah.
And so I really want people to go out there and look and see and get to know you, because it works. It's pretty obvious it works.
Well, I thank you, Trish. That is definitely, that show was the claim to fame for me. We didn't even want to do it. We homeschool our kids. We thought the BBC would make us look like freaks, right? We really felt like, whoa, what could they do to us? But we ended up doing the program anyway because we, just had this kind of deep feeling like, who else, if they found someone who wanted to do the show, that could actually be bad. Like,
yeah.
maybe the person who doesn't want to do the show is the best person to do the show, because and in our home we knew we could keep that feeling, that spirit of love in our home, no matter who came into it, because we'd practiced that with foster children for years and years. And quite frankly, the youth that came for the BBC were a walk in the park compared to the kids I had doing treatment care.
But you know what, Wendy and I have actually talked about this. We've both watched the show on your website, and we talked about it afterwards, and we really do believe that they would have taken you apart. But we believe it was the crew that protected you. The crew fell in love with y'all. The crew saw the changes, and the crew protected y'all from the other things. I mean, God obviously was ahead of that, but you know what I mean. It was the crew that was surrounding you and going, you're not going to do that. You're not going to, take that liberty or say that or use that piece or whatever. Because you were telling me about the gentleman that called not that long ago, who had been there, who signed up for another one, right?
Oh, yeah. No, he did. Well, and I will say the crew did not interfere with the kids.
Right.
I will say that. They didn't, but sometimes you might change a little bit quicker when you've got a camera in your face, right? There is that. I will say, though, I do go to people's homes who have kids that are even worse than those. And I
can't imagine. That was a tough.
They actually do change within about 2 to 3 days.
Wow.
Not like permanent for everlasting, but they make enough of a change that they go, okay, I can be calm and I can use some skills. And then after a couple of weeks they go, I'm never changing. I'm never going back because this is freedom and I get it. I feel it finally. But a parent has to be so consistent. So yeah, let's talk about the camera crew. That was a significant part of this.
Oh my gosh. It made me cry when you told me that. So yeah, talk about it.
So there was one of the crew. We just loved our camera crew. They were wonderful people actually, and just dedicated to trying to make the most honest show they could. And there's only one part in the show where a narrator says something where I'm like, where'd they get that? But other than that, the whole thing was really good, and it was honest, and I really appreciated that because you don't always get that in the TV world. But there were people sleeping in my house every night. From the camera crew. At one point, there was a person who slept across my front door, like across it every night, because they could not lose one of these kids.
Right.
They had to make sure nobody got lost.
Yeah.
And so, anyway, so we would, late into the night, all the kids would go to bed and we would talk, and we just really became wonderful friends. And this one guy, he just bawled and bawled when it was time for the show to be over, and he just didn't want to leave us, and he was just really wonderful. Well, anyway, he called me. It was probably 6 weeks later or so, just out of the blue. He called me, and I said, "Oh, Dave, what are you doing calling me?" And he's like, "Oh, Nicholeen, I'm so glad you picked up the phone." He said, "When I left your house, I just felt so empty." He said, "There was a feeling in your house. It was so powerful and so strong, I did not want to leave it." And he said, "And when I left, I just missed it, and I was so empty, and I came back here." He said, "My flatmate thought I was so depressed. He almost bought me a one-way ticket back to the States." He said, and I just knew. He said, so as soon as the World's Strictest Parents did another filming, I signed up for it because it was going to be in Utah. It was going to be in Oklahoma.
Mm-hmm.
And he said, "And this is awful. This family is awful." He said, I don't have that feeling. I thought I would come here and I would see that feeling again. I thought it had something to do with the United States." He's like, "But it doesn't, Nicholeen. It's just your house, huh?" Your house. And I said, "Oh, Dave." I said, "I'm so sorry." I said, that is the spirit of love. The spirit of truth, the spirit of God. That's what you felt. It's in my house. And we invite it here on purpose, deliberate, like we do everything else deliberate, We invite it here. And he just said, "Oh, Nicholeen, I think I can make it through this if I've been able to talk to you." And he's like, "Can I please come back to your house on holiday? I know that's weird, but I'm like, oh, bless your heart." Anyway, no, we loved them. That was wonderful. And I'll tell you what, if you want to know lasting change, now this is how you know if it really worked for those kids. They came to our house for 8 days. And we, keep touch with them here and there. It's probably not as much as we'd like to, but they're both off on their adult lives now,
Yeah.
And so, it's kind of like here and there. But Hannah went back, and she is now married. She had a baby, if you'll remember, a 10-month-old.
Right.
Now is married with 4 kids, and she's a mom, and she is like, and she's like, "Nicholeen, you'd be so proud of me. I'm a good mom." And I'm like, "Oh, good."
Oh.
So she's doing a wonderful job and has made a lot of changes in her life for the better. And James, he went back and he changed his life, and he changed his life with his mother, and he stopped a lot of his addictions and everything. And he really, he really made an incredible progress. And he also went back to school. And university to get a degree, and has a degree, and it's just amazing because he, I think, is the first person ever in his family to have a degree. And so you see, they came to our home, and they were here for 8 days, and 2 of the days they struggled, but after that they just gelled into the family, and we just loved them. And they caught something. What they caught only can come from true freedom. Mm-hmm. They caught it in our house, and it's called the American dream. Mm-hmm. They caught it. They both wanted a family. They both wanted to succeed. James all of a sudden wanted to do the hard thing, go back to school that he dropped out. He had dropped out from high school. He had to go back and finish and then start on a whole new track of education. Because we read a book called The Dream Giver, and he said, "I do have a dream." And I said, "Well, tell me what it is. Let's decide how you're going to get it then." And it was just like, whoa, that he had that opportunity, to have somebody invest in him that little bit and to show him it was possible if he really wanted it. That's what he caught. And you know what? That is the whole thing. That's where the American dream comes from, is from a person being able to self-govern and finding that freedom. And the more and more we do not have that self-government structure, which starts in the home, in our family, then the more and more we don't have the American dream, and our society falls apart. So those circles that I drew, I like to call them ripples, because if you dropped, there's your circles. If you drop that rock in the middle, so that's the self-learned self-government, all of the other lines of the defense that will help the self also transform because of the self. So the whole entire world, especially the nation at the very least, could and does transform when one person develops the ability to self-govern.
Yep. And that's where it starts. It always starts at home. It's always been that way. That's a biblical principle as well.
Yeah, it is.
You.
Oh, go ahead. I was going to say, whenever I speak at like homeschool conferences and things like that, I always tell people the first lesson you really could ever teach your children is how to govern themselves, because then that makes everything else easier. If they know how to follow an instruction, then you say, okay, I'm giving you an instruction. You need to go practice your piano right now. Then they look at you, keep a calm face, voice, and body, say, okay, or ask to disagree appropriately. They go do it and then check back, and you praise them, and it's all good.
There you go.
And so everything happens that way. Okay, go ahead, Wendy.
Yeah, one thing I wanted to ask before we get ready to wrap it up is there any family, is there any child, is there any situation when you would say, no, this just won't work for you?
I haven't found one yet. I will, because really, truly, even the children that have the most severe behaviors or situations. So a ton of the parents that come to me and the organizations that come to me are people who specialize in kids with ADHD, OCD, ODD, RAD, compulsive lying, kleptomania, anger control issues, these kinds of things, because those were the types of kids that I dealt with in my home. And those kids, now some of them will take longer. If you have a raging, you rage and that's a habit, well, it's going to be a lot longer road where you're just run-of-the-mill kid within 1 week is a totally different person once they learn those 4 basic skills. But this other child may have a habit that's much more ingrained. It's kind of a rut in their brain, and it's harder for them to pull out of it. But they still need something to help point them in the right direction so that they can pull out of it. And it does help. It helps all people. No, I have not found a lost cause. I would imagine that if a person really truly had no function over themselves at all and could not do any amount of assessment at all, well, then I guess, it would be. But then your brain's not really working that much, and sometimes even the kids with the most severe issues, who their brain is functioning at a lower capacity, it's still functioning, and they can still make choices. So long as you can make a choice, I think you can do this.
Great question. Great question. So I have totally enjoyed this. I have notes everywhere. I have literally them circled every which way on my paper. Along with my graph. Thank you very much.
Yay,
so
yeah.
I love it. I absolutely love it. I highly recommend it, and I think that this is a wonderful program that can change lives, can change families, can change relationships, and eventually, like we were just talking about, it can actually it can change communities and nations if we follow through. So. Nicholeen, I have totally enjoyed meeting you. I have totally enjoyed getting to know you. So I'm thankful, very, very thankful to have you sit down and talk to us today. Wendy, did you have anything else you wanted to ask before we get off? Because I know you had.
Well, I didn't really have another question, but I did want to just say thank you so much. I know you're really busy, but this is something that's so important, and I really feel like that so many of us as homeschoolers have kids who, or we hear from a lot of moms who say, my child won't do his work. He'll just say, no, I'm not going to do it, and just won't do it. Or they have problems with their children, fighting, or conflicts in the home, just all sorts of things. And I think one of the most important things we can do as homeschoolers is get the behavior part under control first, because you cannot teach a child that cannot behave or who chooses not to behave. And to me, this that we've talked about today is more important than anything else we could talk about, think about, or do as homeschoolers. Because if we don't have this under control first, it's going to make everything else not only a whole lot harder, but a whole lot less effective. And so I really appreciate I know you're busy, and I appreciate your taking time out of your schedule to do this interview and to encourage us and to say, you know what, you don't have to live like that. You can make these changes, and not just say, you go for it and make these changes, but to say, here's how to do it.
And I'm here. And I'm here. That's part of the implementation course. I'm here. I'm here.
Mm-hmm.
And you have calls every single week where you take questions, right?
I do. I fit them into my life every Friday. I take questions. We record it. If the person sent in a question and can't be on the call, we send those recorded calls out to the whole group of everybody who's on that support group. And it is a part of the implementation course, and it's valuable because then you get your individual questions answered. Anyway, Wendy and Trish, I really appreciate being here. I do. It is. And Wendy, your comments were just so almost what I would say in the end. I'm like, oh, I don't need to say anything. You just did my wrap up for me, but that is the truth. Homeschooling was, quite frankly, the best choice I ever made in my life. Ever made. Yeah. I never knew a family could be so happy, so united, could have such purpose together as a group. Mm-hmm. And it wouldn't be quite that if we didn't have self-government. Mm-hmm. So people always ask me, Nicholeen, how do you do it? You head the worldwide organization for women. You're the CEO and founder of Teaching Self-Government. You write stuff. You got a radio program. You got all these things. How in the world do you do that and homeschool your kids and everything else? And I always say, self-government. Mm-hmm. Part of my self-government is they always come first, and I just trust that God will help me have the rest I need for whatever else I'm doing, and I just fit that in. But self-government for them, too, is I can say, okay, London, I need you to can the tomatoes while I go talk to Wendy and Trish, okay?
No, we need her to take the camera into the kitchen now so we can see what the kitchen looks like, right?
Goes, okay, and then she just does it, you know? Or I say, okay, I need you to whatever, and it doesn't matter what it is. They say okay, or they disagree appropriately, and we always have this understanding, and there's a calmness that is here. When there is no emotional uproar or emotional abuse that's happening, you have infinite amounts of energy. Yeah. And the stress, it's just the stress is not here. Because we're not making it up for ourselves.
Right.
And that is power, honestly and truly. And just one other thing, if I could add on to Wendy's thought, besides what you said, which was perfect, I want to also say, if you want to make a powerful person, a confident person, an emotionally strong person, you have to teach them self-government. You have to. So even if your child didn't learn chemistry, okay, or didn't even get to geometry, okay, you just never got there, whatever it was, okay, let's say that child can communicate with anyone, no matter the pressure, no matter the fire. They can analyze themselves, they can analyze their situation, they can problem solve and think of the solution and the principle that is needed. That is not taught in a book. Okay. It's not taught in a story. That is taught by teaching a person self-government. That's the kind of children that I have. And I'm not saying that to brag. I'm saying that because that I didn't even know when I went into it. When I first started teaching my 3-year-old son, because I was doing these youth, these youth were at my home too, and I was teaching them self-government, and he was having tantrums too. So I thought, well, guess what? They're all getting, we're all doing self-government, and that's when I started because we just wanted to stop the tantrums and the dents in the wall from the Tonka trucks that he was throwing around, okay, But as time went by, I realized, holy cow, I'm looking at him, and I see him with the church youth group, and he is unique. He is different. Same with my daughter, strong. She won't bend. You know how even at church, there's some kids who you're like, oh, man, morally, you're just not, you're just not there, right? You know how that goes. Well, I mean, that happens in every faith. There's always some that are struggling. So my kids have never been sucked into any of that. It never has enticed them. They have never felt the need to fit in because they have the confidence to stand up. And the reason they have the confidence to stand up is because they know the biggest piece of truth that they have in their possession, which is, I get to pick my destiny. I get to pick my happiness. I get to know what's right and wrong and choose when to follow it. And I do not have to make any excuses for my behavior. It's all on me. And so I'm taking ownership. And when they do that, they become a different person. They become a leader.
It's fantastic.
And and there's this whole movement of homeschool out there, like leadership type homeschooling, where you're training children to be leaders and that kind of a thing. And quite frankly, that's a key piece. You can talk about leadership till you're blue in the face, but until they know how to lead themselves, they won't be leaders.
That's right. That's right. Well, I actually am going to be going through this course myself, so I'm sure people will be hearing about it. We're in the middle of a huge transition in our house, so it'll probably be a month or two before I can start it. But I'll be sharing with everybody about how I do, and I have older kids, so it'll be a walk. And truly, Nicholeen will have to change me before she changes anybody else. So. But I do. I love this.
So long as you're dedicated, you'll keep going. That's how it is with spelling and everything else, right? If you want it, you're going to keep going, even if you're not there yet.
That's right. Well, thanks, Nicholeen. I am thrilled. I'm so excited to have you here. And good luck. You have a big conference coming up, don't you?
I do. I'm going to be speaking at the World Congress of Families.
Yes.
So that's going to be happening this month. And I'm also doing a couples retreat training in Cancun, Mexico. And then, this is kind of fun.
Wendy, how do we get in on that?
I know.
How do we get in on the Cancun trip? Darn.
That's kind of like next week, so you're a little late. Just a little late.
I know.
We'll shoot for next year.
There you go. Hey, come to one of them, though, because we'd love to have you. It'd be so much fun. But after that, actually, the month of November, we've been invited by the Catholic Diocese. I'm not Catholic, but I'm honored at the invitation, actually. And we've been invited by the Catholic Diocese to go and teach the bishops and the priests and their facilitators and trainers of their program, which is called the Family Life Program in the whole country of Kenya. They're all coming together to Nairobi to learn and be taught how to teach self-government. We're doing this as a humanitarian effort. They have had a negative impact by Western culture on their society, and their society is not, well, I mean, we've had a negative impact too, let's be honest. We could talk about that for like a whole other call. They are wanting me to come and help them teach their parents how to teach their children self-government. They're going to be having me speak at multiple universities and things like that in Nairobi. So our family, me and my children, will be taking our homeschool on the road. We've done this multiple times, England and China and stuff. Anyway, but we will be taking it there and going to teach the people of Kenya. And my children are trainers. They take groups of youth. And even my 11-year-old son, not youth, groups of adults rather, my 11-year-old son will take a group of adults and he will teach them how to do those 4 basic skills, how to correct an out-of-control child, how to keep that stillness in their home. So we're going to take it to Kenya. So yeah, life keeps going for us, but it was fun to do this and take a few minutes with you ladies today.
Well, when we said she's busy, this is what we mean. This woman is crazy busy. So, well, that is an honor, too. What an honor to be asked to do that. So, well, good luck with that.
I feel like that's a wonderful honor. I feel like the Catholic Church, just over there in Kenya at least, is having a ton of foresight. They prayed about all the problems that they saw in their society, is what they told me. Everything, from like habits and addictions to obstinate behaviors to abortions to whatever, and they said, you know what, we feel like the only way to fix all of these things we're seeing in our society, which are just going rampant, is to fix the parenting. We've got to fix parenting, and that's when they asked me to come.
It's fantastic. I can't wait to hear about that. I'm sure we'll hear about it on all the calls, right? You're going to share about it, right?
Support group. You might get some from Nairobi.
There you go. Well, good luck with that, and thank you again for being here. And again, go to her site. It's teachingselfgovernment.com. We will have a review on our website that will be called something along those lines, probably a review of Teaching Self-Government, and you'll be able to see Tanya's walk through it. So be sure to visit our site, which is Hip Homeschool Moms.
And
so
we're gonna be having something free to give away, right? That we're gonna be
Yes. Yes.
Because I've got something free prepared for everybody. So
that's right.
If they're watching this on your site, then I guess that'll be written somewhere.
It'll be on the post.
That will be in the.
Hey, great.
So thanks, y'all, and thanks, Nicholeen. Good luck, safe travels with all your adventures that you have coming up, and I will look forward to seeing you in a couple months when I start your program.
Okay, fabulous.
Thank you.
Y'all take care.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.